right, welcome back, folks, to probably what will end up being the most watched video in our entire series, the section on bed leveling. Probably the most important thing for you to remember about bed leveling is every minute or every hour you spend on bed leveling will be paid back 100-fold in printing, because everything starts from having a level bed. I would guess 70% of all the time I spend troubleshooting prints falls back down to poor adhesion or caused by a bad bed level. So just remember, yes, this is a bit time consuming, and yes, it's very, very important that you get it right, and you may want to go around and do it one time and then readjust. You're going to want to make sure you're checking your bed level fairly often, certainly if you're having adhesion problems with your bed. So let's go ahead and get started. So bed leveling can be described in two steps. The first one is making sure that you get your hot end on the Z-axis exactly at the right height above your print bed. Okay, and so that's the first thing that we're going to do. But before we do that, there's a couple steps you should have already done. The first one is, of course, hit the Auto Home button, and that's in your menu. Under Motion Auto Home. And once you've done that, you're going to want to move your hot end so that the nozzle is roughly directly above one of the bed leveling screws. Okay, so I usually start in the front left, and you'll notice that I've got my hot end, my nozzle pretty much centered over that, and I've got it up in the air so that I can see underneath it. It's important that you make sure that you have it up above your bed so you don't crash the nozzle into your bed and scratch the bed as you're moving it. So I'm going to start with my hot end right above the bed leveling screw. If you're not sure how to move your hot end, please go ahead and watch one of the videos we have that show you how to move the hot end in the X and the Y and the Z axis. So we're going to start off with a piece of paper. I've got a Post-it note here. And we're going to slide it underneath and make sure that right above the screw, it can slide freely between the print bed and the hot end. Now I'm going to go to the Z, move the Z axis so that I can adjust it. And importantly, when I select the step, I'm going to select the smallest step. So either 0.1 or even 0.025. Well, having done that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to adjust it downward and moving the piece of paper. And see, that one is a little too much. See, it's got just a little bit of, as I'm trying to pull the paper, you can see it's kind of holding back. So I'm going to make it just a little bigger. And that is a very nice level, just enough grip on the paper. I can feel a little bit of tension on it as I pull out. So the next thing we need to do is now that we have this set at a specific, at the right height for our first set bed leveling screw, we need to go and we need to do that for the other bed leveling screws. Now, of course, we can't change its height anymore. It's now set. This is going to be our new 0 Z-axis setting. So as we move it over, we now need to move our piece over onto the next leveling screw. So to do that, you already know how. We're going to use our move axis. Okay, what you should have noticed when you do this is, of course, because you're not having to change your Y, you only have to move your X axis to move it straight across to get it right above the next bed leveling screw. And we're going to repeat the same process. But this time, instead of moving our Z axis on the print head to get the right gap, we are going to turn the bed leveling screw. So again, I'm going to slide it under. And at this point, I can already tell it's just a little tight. And so we gave you a cheat sheet at the training, but if you remember, clockwise is closed. So if you think about turning the knob clockwise, that closes the gap. Well, my gap is already a little too tight. It's very sticky here. So I'm going to turn it counterclockwise to open the gap. And oh, that feels very good. See, I can just barely slide it in. Maybe it's just a little tight still. So I'm going to open that up. And as I close it down a little bit, I can feel the tension on it and finally pull it out. And I've now leveled both front and left and right side of the front of the bed. Now, of course, I have to repeat that on the back two corners, and not just the back two corners, because remember, you're going to chase that back around at least another full cycle where you're going to be now using just the bed leveling screws, not changing the Z anymore. You're going to use it on the two rear, and then come back to do the front, back, back again, going around at least twice to get those things set just perfectly. Okay, so the last thing that we need to do is we need to move our hot end back to its 0, 0, 0 position. So we're going to go ahead and go back to motion and move our X and Y axis back to 0. So I can just run it all the way back to 0. And I can move the Y axis, big steps, 10 steps, right? And I move that back to 0. Oop, that's getting bigger, so that's getting smaller. Okay, perfect. Now I know that if I go back to the home page, our info screen, I am at X, Y, and Z minus 0.1, but I want that, I know that that is my new 0. This is what I want to be 0. So the last thing you're going to do is you're going to go to Configuration, under Advanced Settings, Set Home Offsets, and that noise, you'll notice now it says I'm now at 0, 0, 0. So it's now decided that this is what it means to be 0, 0, 0 on this printer. And don't forget to save your settings. So under Configurations, Store Settings. And that is how you bed level your Ender Pro 3.